Hello, everyone in podcast land. I'm David.
And I'm Jono.
And this is the podcast where we race to tell you all the best news about good stuff, not world news. World news is scary. It's the weird. Let's Wing It podcast.
Yeah. Today we're going to talk about Gran Turismo and actually kind of like the topic I would like to kind of like go around because this is based on the theme of the story. This is very general. Can video games actually be applicable in real life?
Real life skills.
Real life skills. So, but in the movie, it's a simulator. Gran Turismo is marketed as a video game, sold on video games and on consoles, but it's not really a video game. So it's kind of a weird kind of like middle ground. But, there's other games, real-time strategy, other simulator games, engineering games, city building games. They're all simulators. So kind of a thing that I kind of want to ask. But so we're going to be talking about Gran Turismo and things we're up to.
Yeah, I've also watched some spooky movies. I watched the new Saw nice. X. I also watched the kind of hit horror movie A24's Talk to Me, which is the movie where the teenagers hold hands with a possessed statue thingy. I'll give you my thoughts on that, as well as I finished Cyberpunk and Phantom Liberty, so I can kind of give you some a little more in depth, maybe a little bit of spoiler content about that. But first, let's talk about the most important thing, our sponsor, Beacon.
Beacon mics. The number one reason a listener or viewer will turn off a new podcast or video is because of bad audio. That's honestly 100% true. That's why this podcast is powered by Beacon Mic. All the features you need are built right into the mic, which makes connecting easy by USB-C. Gives you the best broadcast quality audio without having to spend hours setting it up. And it saves you a ton of money from having to buy a bunch of gear. So I can really speak, towards that. The Beacon mics are really powerful via the software. It's a very really elegant solution equipment, but the software is what really powers it. But I would say this, if you don't want to screw around with the software, just plug it in and it sounds great.
So easy.
So easy. So, if you want one of these, pretty much you get $20 off right now. Ooh. If you go to beacon.com/discount/wing, it automatically applies the discount at checkout. Or if you didn't click that link and you just want a discount, $20, use the discount code WING. So check it out. beacon.com/discount/wing.
What a good place to start our body of our podcast. Jono, I know you wanted to ask a question about...
Yeah. I already kind of asked it earlier. Okay. So, can, video games / simulators kind of like help you develop to become the best in the world in that specific field? Because, just for context, we're going to talk about Gran Turismo, Sony's latest video game kind of ish movie. And, that's the story, based off he played video games all the time, top player, and becomes a race car driver. But, can that actually do it? It is based on a true story.
I think that, yes. If we're going very specific, where a game's specific skill set will allow you to do something that you did in the game in real life, I think that's kind of limited to mostly simulator things. Flight simulator, there's all those tales of people being able to land a plane or easily picking up pilot skills because they played thousands of hours in Flight Simulator. And that's, the whole point of that game is to basically approximate what it would be like to fly a real plane. You could kind of do the same thing with the truck simulators and the farm simulators, especially the people that go all out with the cockpits or whatnot to simulate they're really driving a big semi.
Yeah.
But I also think that if you're going kind of more broad, video games do help you grow skills. It's been proven that it helps with hand-eye coordination, spatial skills, especially being able to visualize in 3D. And so kind of more broadly applicable skills across different spaces. It can improve reaction time, and keep your brain sharp depending on how you play or what you play. And so I think that, yes, video games can help you learn a real life skill. That's my answer. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's certain games out there. Like, well, one thing I am in agreement where it is, but it is very limited. Like, those is certain categories where it does not apply fully. You know, first person shooters. When you're getting shot at, it's very different experience, and also everyone who's like in that also thinks they're the main character of their own life. But sorry to say, you know, it is not. Bullets can go through a lot of things. That thin piece of sheet metal does not stop bullets. So I mean, you know, things like first person shooters totally out. There is like items like business and management games that have applicable things like supply chain. Like supply chain is one skill you can kind of develop, at least that kind of same mindset into real life. Because, you know, one thing feeds with this, and you get the result. Yeah. It's very basic, but also it's a very, if you're not into it, like I am, like for me, it's like, oh, it's so simple. Like, it's no problem. But some other people have that kind of, don't have that same grasp. But there is like the simulators for like engineering, like Cabal Space Program. I think that is a good start. But it's, you know, obviously your PC does not have the same kind of processing powers as a supercomputer that to do the simulations there. And, you know, like you said, flight simulators. I remember back in like 2010, 2008, where one of my old coworkers, he's very into planes, like the whole like airport system and everything. And I was really into gaming back then, but he told me that there was like a huge community of like flight simulator people where they will take control, not the airplane, but air traffic control. And so they'll do the same call outs, like I can't replicate it. But they'll do everything almost to the book to get these planes landed or, you know, let them, you know, be approved to take off. And it's all like crazy. So I think yes, but also no. But if you are, unless, you know, we're going to talk about it in the, you know, in the world of simulators, there's a lot of growing pains because you can have the mindset, but you also kind of need, you know, surprisingly for racing, you do need the physical prowess, and you know it does talk about it. But yeah, so I think it is to a point. Like,
yeah, and I think an important thing to remember is things that aren't simulators exclusively are designed to be fun. And part of the fun is, you know, helping you release dopamine and that endorphin rush. And so like even like a management sim is a more fun version of what real life management was. So there's some skills that are applicable, but I think people get an unrealistic expectation of the feeling of reward they can get for doing real work. There's obviously real dopamine and endorphin rushes that you can get from accomplishing real work, growing real life skills, but video games have kind of weaponized that and min-maxed, you know, that endorphin rush. And I think sometimes life can, I know for me, if I play too many video games, life becomes boring or like dull because I'm just like, I've overdosed on endorphins and my body can't recreate that naturally with like real life situations.
I mean, it's like, you know, the relationship with video games electronics to hacking your brain is getting so crazy. That's why I barely try to play mobile games, because that game, like mobile games are just based on engineering tools to get you to hit certain levels in your brain. And, you know, surprisingly or not surprisingly, we're getting really good at that as humans. Humans are really good at manipulating other humans. It's the way of life. And like, you know, and those other the kind of parts to it too. Like, let's say you're like, oh, I'm really good at real-time strategy games. I can win a battle. Real-time strategy games never have a morale thing unless you're playing like the Total War series or something more like that. Like you think of like, oh, I'm really good at medieval combat. It's like, no, like, you know, those guys are one thing back then, they were super stupid. Morale, they can break any second. And then also like, you know, like you're controlling people that just in the game, just like emotionless pixels. So yes and no categories, but yeah, I say it is yes to a point. It's a good start, but you know, real life will always trump, you know, simulators.
Yeah. And I think that's an interesting lead into this movie. If you guys don't know, the Gran Turismo movie is based on a real story where Gran Turismo teamed up with Nissan, and basically they found the best Gran Turismo players, and they did a GT Academy, a Gran Turismo Academy, where the best players went and trained to be real race car drivers, and got to race in the people that were the highest rated got to race in a real race. And that's the story of this movie. Jono, what did you think about the Gran Turismo movie?
So, I have very weird feelings about this because I actually had no interest in watching this. I know Sony really kind of like pushed Orlando Bloom as like a kind of a marketing pull to this movie.
Which is weird. He's kind of not cool anymore, but
he's not. Yeah, I don't know. He's kind of like going to Tom Cruise craziness, but that's okay. I mean, that's.
I don't even know that. What is he? What's his crazy things?
Oh, I mean, you just watch him in interviews. He's just like kind of like
wacky.
He's kind of like more wacky than usual.
Okay.
At least that's what I thought initially. But anyways, but it's until like a coworker Ellis was like talking about it, and I was like, shoot, I shouldn't watch this because I actually have a weakness for racing movies.
Okay.
I even like I think it was like Christian Hayden, and Sylvester Stallone Driven. I love that movie.
I haven't seen that one. Days of Thunder.
Days of Thunder. Like the drummets asked me what my favorite movie is. It's Ford versus Ferrari. I think I've watched that like 30 times. Like,
that's your favorite movie? Okay.
It's right now. It's my favorite movie. Yeah, because I just have it playing in the background because it's just great. Like even Matt Damon's awesome and Christian Bale's awesome. But yeah, so watching this movie, I had to do my usual things because I had to stop it like the first 10 minutes. I was like, stop. Because so here's my overall things. You have to get past the cringe to find some good stuff in it. And at the end, it's actually a decent movie. But I would give it a 7 out of 10. It is, you have to kind of trudge, get through it, and then you can enjoy it.
Yeah, I went into this movie based on the trailer. I kind of was like, okay, yeah, this could be fine. It's a good story. It's a good way to take this movie. And I thought that the movie did a pretty good job of getting me invested in the characters and the stakes. I thought the races were pretty good. Overall, I didn't find it like horrible. I didn't like really want to turn it off. And I found myself at its best moments kind of getting excited, you know, when he wins or gets picked. I was like, hell yeah, yeah. And I'd get like that feeling in my stomach. And I was like, okay. So the movie is definitely not an abject failure. It's pretty like predictable. Like if I gave you, 3 plots or 3 pieces of the plot, you would be able to write the movie yourself. There's nothing surprising. There's nothing particularly insightful. But it does the paint by number things well enough that you're happy that the people win at the end. And it's pretty good. It's pretty good.
You sell it. It's like that. It's kind of thing. It's kind of hard to describe because like, I mean, we're not really going to go through the plot. Just if you want these, just watch the trailer. That's pretty much
just the whole plot.
That's the whole plot.
And then it's race go vroom.
Yeah, cars go, but like, there were like really good moments. Like, Archie Manderwick, who plays Jan Mardenborough, I think he's really good. He's really good at like bringing that human character out. What I had a huge issue at the start, and like, I said first 10 minutes, I had to stop it for a bit, is just when gamers act like gamers, it is the most cringy thing I've ever seen. Like, sorry, if there's a filmmaker watching this, do not treat kids like how you think kids are. Kids are actually very smart and they will engage with your content. If you just try not to cater to them to like, I want to have it like kids speaking like kids. Do not do that. Like, sprinkle it in a little bit. But if you get like his friend at the start, just like horrendously pissed me off. Like, I had to stop it. I'm like, I can't watch this. It's like, yo, bro, let's go get them. Yeah, let's go, my fam. I'm like, stop. Just talk like a normal human being. Yeah. Just be like, hey, man, we got to go race. Let's get to it. Like things like that.
Yeah, it has that Avatar 2 syndrome where you're like, oh, it was a grown man who wrote this teenager dialogue, and you're like,
Yeah.
oh,
It's like, bro. Yeah, it's like that kind of stuff. But once you get past that and you just see Jan interact with Jack Slater or David Harbour's character.
yeah.
Like it felt so good. There was like David Harbour. Like when I saw him, I'm like, what are you doing? You're coming off from the big success of Stranger Things
And the great Hellboy movie.
Yeah. So I'm like, what are you doing? Like, stop. But then watching it, I'm like, you know what? Like, he's like my favorite character out of this whole thing.
Easily. And I found the things I cared the most about was Jan winning his approval. So when he starts to kind of when David Harbour's character starts to warm up to him, I found that's when I like kind of engaged with the movie, you know?
Yeah.
He's like coming down on him. He's like, you need confidence. You didn't take that turn. You didn't commit to braking. Like, you suck. And he's like, I swear, like, the brakes were fucked. He's like, you just suck. And then the other driver goes and tests the cars, and it turns out the brakes are fucked. And that's like kind of the turning point where it's like, oh, maybe this kid actually gets it. Maybe this kid's actually a good driver. And then after that, every time they bond, every time he challenges, pushes him, or they grow closer, I was pretty into it.
Yeah. I think like my favorite part was like, this is the kind of like the downfall moment or the biggest attrition point in the movie is when he's racing at Nürburgring and has that crash. Like his car lifts off, kills that spectator, which did actually happen. And something I want to kind of comment later on in the movie or, in this recording, is that like just seeing him how he understands the steps to take care of Jan to kind of bring him back up, going, hey, I understand that this was a very traumatic moment. Like no one will ever fault you for quitting now because it is a scary and you did technically kill someone. But he does the same kind of good process because like he didn't shy away from what the accident happens. He brought him to the specific location because when you think about it, if he didn't do that, you'd start creating these kind of like traumatic moments that you're kind of scared to go back. And if you're a racer, the Nürburgring, if you don't know, it's a huge, awesome, amazing track in Germany. Or some people say it's crap. Some people say it's great.
Sure. But it's an iconic track.
Iconic track. And, if he's going to become a professional race car driver, he can't just like do everything and skip that race. You have to kind of do everything. So those parts were really magical for me.
Yeah, and I think the movie did a good job with like the kinetic energy of the races. I thought there was a little too much on-screen text of like 7th place, 12th place. Oh, he's going ahead, but it's like all in text and shit. Or I thought it was cute the first couple times the PlayStation sounds would happen. So like there's like the PS4 press the button sound. I thought that was
amazing at the beginning. It's like based on true story. I'm like,
But then they do it 10 other times, and I was like, why? Why would you do that? Even the same with the sound of like the lights changing. So the countdown to the race starting, it's the Gran Turismo sound of it. But they made it a main focus many times. And I was like, each time you do this, it becomes less impactful. And so I thought the races were good. They weren't great. I thought they were excellent at giving me clarity of what was happening. I never found myself like, who's that car? What's this? They would be like, it's this guy in the rainbow car. So you're like, the cars are so clearly different where you're like, it's pretty easy to tell what's happening, who's who. When you go in a close up, you're not like, which car is this one again? I think that's hard. And they did a good job. I thought the passing and the driving and stuff, there was a good sense of danger and kineticism. What I found I didn't like about the action scenes is I just didn't give a fuck about anybody else. So I only cared about Jan. And I cared when it was like the trial one where it was him versus, the brash American kid. That like I cared a little about the interpersonal stuff of that, but all the other ones I was like, everyone's written to be such a fucking paper thin character that it's hard to engage emotionally in the stakes.
Pretty much like Orlando Bloom's character had a little bit of depth. His love interest is just total garbage.
She's got no development.
Jan's mom is total horse shit. It's just I could
not tell you a single thing about her.
Jan's
dad has a bit.
It's like everyone who's male in this movie had a very impactful character, which is like, ooh, I mean, I guess I'm not gonna applaud it for sure, but like it just seems they're very favored towards men, which is very unfortunate.
Well, I mean, they know. I'm guessing they're aiming for a certain target audience. They know the demographic of Gran Turismo because
it's young boys having oh man, how do I say this without being cringy? But it's like young men having dad issues. Like that's kind of it.
And I think like Gran Turismo, part of the appeal is that it's like a simulator. If you're good at Gran Turismo, you're good at racing. And so I think there's an inherent I think. As a generalization, men are more drawn to cars than women. That's a huge generalization. There's obviously women that love cars and there's obviously men that don't. But I think like when you look at the broad demographics, anyways, and I feel like the movie knows it. But it also like, I don't know.
It's very difficult because like everything is like really paper thin, like you said. It's just like you. Like, I mean, going back at like the very start, you can literally, like you said, 3 lines can predict this whole movie. And it's kind of like they took like a Hallmark romance movie. Like, I'm not saying this is catered to females, like, because Jillian did this to me. She's like, okay, here's the setting. That's this, and this. And I'm like, oh, okay. And she's like, guess the whole story. I'm like, okay. And I literally... I said it in such a way. She's like, you literally got it verbatim. I'm like, let's go. So it's not like to male, females like this, like racing isn't like the Hallmark male version. It's just like, this storyline has been done to death and they just did not care about these secondary characters. And it's just literally, I think they just went through, 80 million racers in Gran Turismo. 90% of them are probably male. Let's just cater to that audience. And
that's fair.
And honestly, I'll be 100% honest, they did a very good job at catering because like there's some moments with like the dad like finally approves of Jan of racing and everything. And I was like, yeah, let's go.
I want my dad's approval.
But one thing that was kind of weird was Orlando Bloom's character, which is Danny Moore, who was a marketing executive at Nissan. He was the one who kind of this is his brainchild for GT Academy. I didn't understand. Like, I'm like, is he a good guy or is he kind of a bad guy? Because he did some weird stuff.
I kind of like that. I thought he was going to be a good guy. I thought he was going to be the one that like pushes David. Is it Harbor or Harbor? I think it's
David Harbour.
It is Harbor. Okay.
Yeah.
I like that, he is a good guy where he's trying to help like Jan and help the people get to the race, but he's kind of in it for his own purposes. He wants this marketing campaign to be successful. He doesn't actually care about the racers or anything like that. He just wants this big event so that they can push Nissan cars. And I think that that's fun because he goes from being ally to enemy back to ally. And I think that he's one of the more interesting dynamics of the movie. I don't think he's the most
realistic. He's the most realistic for sure.
I don't think it's super well executed, and I didn't feel like I had good insight into the inner workings of that character. But I don't think that's the point. The movie doesn't really care about inner workings. It just cares about vroom vroom and like man guy proves his dad wrong.
Or proves the naysayers wrong. Because like there's that part when Jan actually wins it by just like a fraction to be the top racer in GT Academy.
Oh yeah.
And there was that part who's Orlando Bloom's like, you did win, but the other guy has like the other guy's like more sex appeal, right? Like he's more better.
He's more marketing ready or whatever.
Yeah. But it's like no, and then it's just kind of weird. It's like you have this huge moment, and then they're like, "No, Jan wins," and he's like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Didn't you not wait?" Like, it felt so weird that he just was like bad guy and automatically good guy, and then you're like, as a viewer, I like distrusted him. I'm like, "Oh, he's gonna be the like kind of secret antagonist."
I mean, can you ever really trust a marketing guy? I don't know. I thought that I like that moment when it's like, David Harbour has to make the choice of like, Do I pick, what's best for the campaign, or do I pick the winner? And he shows who his character is. He's a kind of unyielding moralist, or he has his values that he won't yield.
Yeah.
And I think that's a good moment for showing you those characters, but it's also a good tension. I thought it was like played out a little bit cheap, the way they kind of like put you in the different spots. Anyways, the thing I wanted to talk about based around that was the American character, because even before he opens his fucking mouth, when you see the little American flag, you can predict exactly what the fucking character will be. And I think it's so funny how lazy movies always portray Americans.
Yeah, especially like being here,
asshole.
Yeah, I mean, like movies and TV shows portray, especially like if it's not an American produced show, like it's an international. Like I watch a lot of anime. Even anime is kind of a stretch, but like there's always a type of American person to do, regardless of skin color, regardless of gender. It's like you honestly, first two words out of the mouth, you're like, he's at least North American.
Yeah. Yeah. And so he's his way. I'm glad that they brought him in to be like the secondary racer at Le Mans. And I thought that whole sequence of Le Mans was pretty cool. There was a few things that I was like, they knew they needed a conflict moment, but it just felt really cheap. Like when the pit driver drops the nut or whatever. I don't know if that happened in the real story,
that was probably like, I think that was one of the first races. I don't think that's a Le Mans.
That wasn't a Le Mans one? Oh, okay.
Yeah. It's just for a fact. It's just like, I think the Le Mans, I kind of want to talk about later, but like, yeah, actually one thing, sorry to kind of like jump back a little bit.
Get it.
Cause for me, I've watched religiously the Ford versus Ferrari. There was some problems with that movie in the racing aspects, because it is like 3D, because it's really hard to get access to the Le Mans because it is technically a street circuit.
Okay.
So there is 3D moments in that movie, but I find that the driving action here is too short. I don't see the cars driving, which is very weird. Like you get the crazy drone shit action that I really kind of don't care. Honestly, they're trying to be like, it's Gran Turismo, it's third person.
Yeah, it felt like a video game for a lot of it.
Yeah, but it's like, it's just like, like you get like 3 shots of the car and then back in the cockpit. 3 shots in the car, back in the cockpit. And then there's only like a couple moments when you see like critical passes in a race. When you watch Ford versus Ferrari in that movie, regardless if it's real or 3D renderings, they at least show the cars go for a good like 10 to 15 seconds of just them talking, and you have voiceovers, or it's like a quick shot of the cockpit and then back to the race. And that's what I really loved. And this one lacked it. And it really shows like the first kind of like the montage of the first races for him trying to qualify for the racing license. I kind of forgave it for that. But when he got to Le Mans, it was just like, oh, I thought they were gonna like build it up a little bit more, because Le Mans is like a very like crazy race.
Well, yeah, 24 hours of driving, baby.
24 hours of driving.
It's I feel I totally agree. I think that the action scenes were directed to appeal to an audience that has a very short attention span. It felt very fast cutty in the way that Hollywood movies hide bad action. I thought there was good energy to the driving scenes. But I totally agree. It would be nice to have kind of longer takes and bigger stunts. My guess is that the turnarounds were so tight that they didn't have time to plan, or maybe they just didn't fucking care to do some really cool car stunts. And
this movie was produced during COVID too, so like, there might have been some limitations there as well, like on shoot time, and all those like crazy restrictions during that kind of period.
I thought most of the driving, I didn't notice too much CGI until there's like a super CGI shot, and you're like, whoa, what the fuck? Like sometimes the cars are just like super off, or like there's one shot in particular. And they do it like kind of a couple times. It's sort of like a little motif where
I know
the first time is Jan, he's playing his game, and then he's so into his game that like a cockpit kind of forms around him.
But then that's kind of neat.
Yeah, I was like, it's kind of cool. It looks so bad. The CG in that is so fucking bad. I was shocked. But then the reverse sort of happens where he's driving, and then his cockpit deconstructs, and he's sitting back in his racing sim. Because at the end of the day, the whole point of this movie is to sell copies of Gran Turismo.
And it came out just right in time for, I think, like a year after. Gran Turismo 6.
I bet they wanted to have it out like closer.
Yeah.
And I bet they will sell Gran Turismo copies, because I think that it's a shame they didn't do a GT Academy 2 announcement around this movie, because I think that would have been huge.
I was really surprised, because I was like, because racing as a sport, F1's leading the way right now. But like racing in general is getting so much more like bigger. Like even NASCAR is getting huge. Like, I mean, I'm now like where NASCAR is, and well, kind of the East Coast, and I see how big it is. But like it feels like I keep hearing about it, and it's like, yeah, it's getting bigger every year. Like racing is big now.
Yeah.
So I mean, I don't see why they wouldn't do it.
Yeah, and I'm sure they will. Sony seems to have some grand schemes for doing their cinematic universe that crosses over to video games, and it seems to be doing okay. I mean, Last of Us was big. This seems to be doing pretty okay.
Uncharted we don't talk about. It's so sad.
And so I think
the one thing to me, going back to the Le Mans part, what kind of like made me a little bit upset was it's just like, he gets into the crash, and this is strictly just the storyline. The big, friction point in the movie, and then building up to the race of Le Mans. Here's my biggest pat, and I kind of touched point on this earlier, is that they kind of just like, it felt like they just jumped in to Le Mans. They're like, we got the car, weird, and let's do it. It's like, no, you got to train for at least like 6 months, like at least 6 months, because
have that kind of endurance. Oof.
Yeah, because it's like they do like, like 3 to 4 hours of racing, like each driver, and it's just like, and they go in, they come out, they go in, come out, and it's just like, oh, got car, yeah, cool. It's a little. Watch out, it brakes really hard and it might spin out on you. It's meant to be driven fast. And guys like, got it. And then I'm going to like place top, and they was like top 5 in Le Mans. And I was like, no.
No. I did like the touch. I mean, it's real life, so they can't fuck it up too much. But I like that they don't win. They just place 3rd on the podium.
They place high.
Yeah, it's way higher than anyone expected. It's some gamer kids to place.
They're pretty good for a noob.
Yeah. So I kind of briefly touched about it, but one of my big complaints in this movie is the commercial aspect of it. Like, not only is it obviously a big promo for Gran Turismo, but it's also like a big fucking Nissan commercial. I mean, and it's
telling you from a car guy, Nissan needs it.
I mean, the only good car for a bit.
I mean, the only cool car has always been the GTR.
Yeah, Skyline.
Skylines have always been super cool. I mean, like, do you want to drive a Nissan Rogue? Like, it's cheap. Like, I almost bought one because it was cheap and I really needed a new car. But like, Nissan is basing off the Fiat, Chrysler, and Alpha. They call it FCA, Stellantis. Of like, so like a Chrysler car, Dodge. Here, like that equivalent in Japan, like that's
like
how
the
bad
cheap shitty car.
Yeah, the GTR is based enough like the Dodge Hellcat. Like that's, well, I mean, better handling than that car, but that's the kind of equivalent.
Yeah, and so it's hard to fully let a movie take me. Not only does this movie not have the skills and the magic to take me anywhere, but my brain and defenses go up really high when it's very clearly co-branding. Commercial product being shoved down my throat. It's fine, and I think overall, like I said, I thought the movie was okay. And it's like, if you like racing, it's fine. It's definitely a background watch. I wouldn't like sit down and focus on this movie. I would have it playing in the background while you kind of come in and out and like watch the racing scenes. And you're like, okay, yeah.
Let's just put it to brass tacks. Do not pay to watch this movie. Watch it when it's streaming available, which I'm gonna guess is gonna be on Sony's core crap system.
Do they even have a paid subscription?
I think you can watch it through the PlayStation. I think that's how they integrate it, and also Sony TVs.
I think that's
it's
only
like the
in
Bravia
the States, though.
Yeah. Oh, I mean,
you're in the States, so welcome.
So, but I mean, like, it's just, just don't pay money to go watch it. yeah, just watch the YouTube videos of us breaking down on it or anything. But I mean, end of the day, it's a decent movie. What's really cool, what I found out in the epilogue, is Jan Mardenborough, the real life Jan, did actually do all the stunt driving in this movie,
cool.
which was really cool.
I always love that.
Yeah, and I think he was also executive producer in it, and he also was the one who approved and allowed them to use the Nuremberg tragedy on it. And then that segues into another part of it, is that they did take some liberties in this storyline.
Okay.
Because I didn't know this going in. I learned it afterwards when I kind of looked it up, especially like researching for this podcast, is that the Le Mans actually was this, like, the sequence of events was not 100% true, especially the Nuremberg race into the Le Mans. The crash actually happened after Le Mans.
Oh, okay.
So I thought that was weird that they did that, but if you do it as a storytelling perspective, it makes sense to do it this sequence.
Yeah.
But also it's kind of a bummer that they had to do it because of basic storytelling.
Yeah.
Because it's like it is good, but also it doesn't take away from that tragedy kind of a little bit.
100%.
Yeah. And then also what's really kind of sad about it is that Jan approved it, but they didn't get the okay from the victims.
Yeah.
And the victims really rioted against it, which is kind of a bummer.
Yeah.
Because it did kill one person.
Yeah.
Like, the person instantly died because of that area. It is a known fact that cars do fly in that area because of just the bumps. And there's people who are the spectators are fully aware that they could die. So there is liability clearance there, but it is kind of a bummer that it happened like that.
It doesn't matter if there's like fault, someone died. And so it's a bummer.
One person said it was okay, but the other person didn't agree to anything or even knew about it.
Yeah.
It's a bummer. But yeah, that's Gran Turismo.
That's Gran Turismo. Not bad. Don't pay for it. I saw 2 other movies, and I'll go through them briefly. First one I saw in theaters was Saw X. They are bringing it back, baby. They did Spiral a couple years ago, and they did full-on Saw movie this time. And you know what, Jono? It was pretty good. It was pretty okay.
Really?
I would give Gran Turismo probably like a 5.5 based on my scale, where anything above 5, I was happy to, or I enjoyed having on. 6 is when it hits like okay. So like it's between like not angry at it and okay for me.
Yeah.
And I'd give Saw X, my amount of enjoyment was about a 6. It is really bad, and there is some stupid shit that happens. And if you think about it for like a second, you're like, that doesn't make any sense. And there's there's the issue of, in like Dark Knight or whatever, where the villain is always like 10 steps ahead of everyone. And you're like, no, that's stupid. That doesn't really make any sense.
He's not that smart.
No. And so I'll go like mild spoilers. I won't give anything away. But the beginning of the movie on Jigsaw, and he's got his brain cancer or whatever. That's from the old movies. That's why he's doing what he's doing. He's dying, and he wants to like help make the world a better place by teaching people lessons and how to live a better life by playing these horrific games. And so he has brain cancer, and it starts at like a cancer support group. And one of the guys at his cancer support group says, "Oh, I've been cured." This person with this random like kind of not on the grid health like system, like alternative healthcare, cured me. You should reach out and get. So this person, so Jigsaw finds these people, and they're like, "Oh, we can help you. Just transfer us like $300,000 or whatever. Fly down to Mexico, and we'll treat you." And so he goes, and it seems all great. They arrive at this mansion. They're like, we're on the run from the authorities because they don't like what we're doing or whatever. And so he goes, and there's other people, and there's like surgeons and all this tech. Basically, I mean, for the first 30 minutes of the movie, it's a story about Jigsaw getting cured of cancer.
So he like lives?
Well, and then, so like I said, spoilers for like the first 30 minutes of the movie.
Yeah.
Then it turns out that it's all a scam, and they were just stealing money from cancer patients, and then all the cancer patients
so he's taking vengeance on those people?
Yeah, and so the movie is him getting vengeance on all the people that scammed him out of his money and all these other people out of his money. And so the thing that's really interesting about this one, because this inevitably always happens with long running horror movies with kind of iconic villains, is they go from being horrific monsters to trying to turn them sympathetic. And this movie really tries to make you be like, Jigsaw's not that bad. No, you know what? I kind of like what he's doing here. But I don't think it quite succeeds when you really think about it. You're like, no, he's bad. Like, what he's doing is so fucked up. Yeah, sure. Like scamming people out of cancer money. They probably deserve death. They probably deserve to be hugely punished. But like, that doesn't justify what the fuck he's doing. Like whatever the fuck he's doing, especially to the people that are involved, but aren't the masterminds behind it. And so, the plot thickens, things happen. And so the movie is bonkers. It's so fucking stupid. What I was surprised is that it wasn't actually as horrific as I remember the Saw movies being.
Really?
There was no like traps or games or anything where I was like, oh my fucking God. There was definitely somewhere I was like, cringing and like, oh, that's fucked up. But it wasn't like, I remember Saw 2 or Saw 3 or whatever. There's one where like someone has their hair caught in like a pulley thing. And it's basically like, as they're doing the thing, it's like pulling on their hair and it eventually like scalps them and shit, where it's just like this absolutely imaginative, fucked up shit. And nothing in here felt super imaginative. But it was definitely gross. And then so the way the plot plays out is really fucking stupid. Yeah. But what I said at the end of the movie was, yeah, that was bad, but I had a good time. And I would say that if you ever liked any of the Saw movies, this one's pretty fine. So you can see that.
Yeah, no, that's interesting because I've never been into like, I mean, this is kind of category of like revenge porn / gore fest / is it really horror or is it just torture porn?
It's torture porn for sure.
So it's that kind of like weird kind of combination. I have never been really into it. I like the lore of Saw because it's kind of interesting. Up to when they get to like the crazy numbers and the sequels. Yeah. It's just like the stuff from the first movie affects stuff in the seventh movie and blah, 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 blah. But yeah, like I think it's just like this movie just needs to stop. that's
well, they did stop for a while and then now they're trying to bring it back because you can tell this movie is done very cheaply. There's like no really big sets. Like there's, the warehouse where the games are happening or whatever, but everything feels very contained. Even like, when they're going to new places, they don't really have establishing shots. It's kind of just in a new place.
So here's the kind of big thing is, for the listeners and the viewers, if you want to get into the movie, this is one thing I heard about Corridor because they had like a whole podcast about it and I listened to it. And I think it's very right. Is that horror for like, strangely enough, is very cheap to make when you think about it. When you actually break it down, it is super cheap to make. And even though like you spent $2-3 million, which is still a lot of money, you can get a return of like $20-30 million. Yeah.
If you break down movies by the ROI based on budget, horror movies are always at the top of the list. Like Paranormal Activity was produced for like a few $100,000. And
Blair Witch was produced with $32,000, and they think hundreds. I think they spent most of that on like equipment,
probably,
and which is like so stupid. And that made like, I think that is probably the highest ROI movie to have ever existed. And so like, what they do is they do horror movies, and then you graduate and they do like kind of like sitcoms or kind of like just. You start kind of get into it. And I think the most expensive movies are action movies, which is kind of like...
That makes sense.
It depends on like if you are interested in it or you just go overseas or it's cheaper to make because safety regulations is way lower.
When you watch The Raid, you're like, yeah, they're not as careful over there.
No, or any like Chinese kung fu movie. Like, apparently, oh my God, what's his name? Donnie Yen? Yeah, Donnie Yen. How he put, I guess, I don't know. This was taken down really fast. I remember when I saw it. He's like, when he did movies like that, he would beat up a guy and then they'd go, okay, next guy. And he just beat him up and just kept doing that sequence. And they just did not care about the other stunt person. They're like,
that was their job, was to be beat up.
I would just like literally beat them up for a couple bucks a day. So that's unfortunate. But anyways, Yeah, Saw X.
The
I'll never
other
watch it.
the other horror movie, it's if you like Saw movies, you know if you're gonna like this, and it does what it does better than any Saw movie I've ever seen, other than the first one. The other horror movie I saw, which is a much higher caliber movie, is Talk to Me, which is A24 released it, I believe, in the summer, and basically the concept is it's a bunch of high schoolers, and someone has this like kind of weird ceramic arm with all these like little doodles on it or whatever. And when you hold it and you say "talk to me," it summons a spirit. And if you like, you say like "let me in," it'll like go into you and you're possessed or whatever. And so they play like this game. It's kind of like Ouija board kind of thing. And it's an A24 movie. It's an Australian movie. And I always love when foreign movies like that, like pretty low budget movies, make their way here and are mild successes here. Because they're usually pretty damn good. And this movie is pretty damn good. It's
A24. I mean, that's already a big selling point.
So one of the big things they do really well is they feel like teenagers, they talk like teenagers, and they act like teenagers. And it's like, it doesn't feel like we talk in Gran Turismo where it's a grown ass men trying to be like, no cap bussin', brah. It's like, no, you're just watching teenagers and like, there's a couple different age groups. And they just feel so real, and it makes it way more horrific because you're like, these are real teenagers. What the fuck's going on? What I liked about the movie was I got the heebies. I think it's a really cool concept, and they do a really good job. It follows one character. I don't want to get into spoilers because I would recommend this movie. I think if you like horror at all, even like high concept core, like if you like It Follows or stuff like that, where it's like it's got a purpose, this is a good movie. But what I found with this is like the metaphor that it's going for is sort of simple. Like I got it right away, and they don't really do anything with it. You kind of just see the natural path of what the metaphor would be. It's not like it's exploring different dimensions of it. It's just like, yeah, that's what happens. The actor is really good. She's really likable. And then as things happen, you're like, you're fucked up. You're fucked up. And so like, there's a scene really early on when she's possessed, like the first possession scene of her, and she's so scary. And so she's a fantastic actor. I hope that she's able to cross over and kind of find success across the ocean. And the movie is scary. There's some really good visuals. I felt like they could have pushed the concept further. There's kind of one scene in particular where I was like, oh, things are about to get interesting, but that's kind of like the furthest they take it. Yeah. So overall, it's hard to talk about this movie without spoiling it. Overall, very good. If you like high concept horror, like I said, It Follows or, Get Out or something a little bit less good, but like high school focused. This is a good movie. I'd give it like a 7.8. And so that's another movie that I watched.
Yeah, no, actually, just even kind of going into that too, because I remember we were talking about this movie at work. I just don't enjoy horror movies. Funny enough, maybe we should go talk to Sarah because
she loves horror movies.
She loves horror movies, and it's Halloween. Halloween is coming up, so I guess we should. I'll text her. Sure. I'm like Sarah, get on here. No, I'm not doing. To be clear, I'm not doing it just so I can get more views. I love Sarah. She's great. I
have my list of 2023 movies that I still need to see, and there's like there's about 50 movies on it, but there's probably like 10 or 15 horror movies.
Yeah. Yeah. We will choose one, and I'll force myself to watch it. Sure. But the one thing I want to talk about, Talk to Me, which is kind of cool, is that it is by these YouTubers. They originally started YouTubers. Raka Raka. Do you remember Raka Raka?
Nope.
No, so Raka Raka, these guys, the names are Danny and Michael, two brothers. I think they look like very much like twins, almost like twins.
Almost like twins.
And they did the most like coolest stunt heavy YouTube videos where it's like them as like mascots or video game characters beating the living hell out of each other. And the stunts were crazy. Like things would like, they would go through walls. They would go outside. I think they did a Naruto reenactment fight in real life, which was super cool. And it looked super rough. And I remember years ago that they were like, we're done, quote unquote, done with YouTube. I'm going to do professional movies, which is great. They made a Raka Raka movie, which I did not watch. I think it was like
sure it's
out in
bad,
2017. But they started doing horror movies. So like back what I was saying with Saw, they started doing these horror movies to build up their vocab in movies
Yep.
and TV shows because they did have the chops based on YouTube, but not traditional media. So, with this, A24 is like a big brand name now after everything everywhere, everything all at once, or vice versa.
Even before that, they've been doing pretty big. Like Lady Bird was a big movie. Moonlight won an Oscar Best Picture.
Yeah. So, I mean, like they have been doing things, but now they're like kind of a solidified brand name. Like A24 is producing this one YouTube series that I'm really excited for. I think it's like Hellsbub Hotel. It's about a hotel in hell. It's about a hotel in hell trying to rehabilitate demons so they become good, which is kind of neat. Like and it's a musical too.
That's fun.
Yeah. So, it's really cool. Like, I just like talked to me. Then I looked at the directors. I'm like, oh, it's those guys. Let's go.
That's really cool. Yeah, that's very rare. People go from YouTube to making proper movies. Usually
successfully.
Yeah, that's very right. People get to make movies, but then it's so cringe. Even like the Muppet Show, it's got Lily Singh in it. And boy, is she not as good of an actor as other actors.
And also, wait, no, did you say Lily or Miranda?
Lily Singh.
Oh, Lily Singh. Yeah, there was another actress that went from YouTube. But anyways, but actually, this is kind of a good segue. And for me, I haven't been watching a lot of TV shows. I've actually kind of broke my habit of Baldur's Gate a little bit. I will get back into it because I need to at least finish the first act.
Yeah, you do.
I'm stuck at the Goblin Camp. Actually, I probably have to ask you something afterwards.
Sure.
But going back with YouTube, right now, YouTube, if you are just a regular viewer of YouTube, you're not going to care about this. But I think this is something kind of important to know because you are probably one of the few people clicking on said videos. So there is now kind of a rising criticism on React content. So I think we talked about the XQC controversy as him reacting is just like sitting through watching it and posting on his channel. And that's how he is transforming his content.
He's really
technically is. It's not. There's another YouTuber who is actually probably on the YouTube space that's bigger than XQC called Ssniperwolf.
I remember her.
Yeah. So she's a very interesting individual. There's a huge story about her, like how she kind of came about, how she grew, and she's just basing up 99% of her content is posting reaction content going, haha, cool. Like literally
the
like
laziest shit ever.
Yeah. Haha, really? That's what it's like? Wow, guys. Crazy. Like that's her content. Like I had to like watch like 2 videos just to confirm what everyone else is saying. And it's terrible.
That sucks.
Unfortunately, if you're kind of like a regular YouTuber or YouTube viewer, you've probably seen her videos because her main channel has 34 million subscribers.
Jeez.
So based on where I work, Marquez Brownlee, and even where David works right now at Linus, our subscriber count combined, just numerically, is still lower than hers.
Yeah.
It's nuts.
But it's such a different thing where they have high subscriber counts, but then their video views are so low.
It's like 1 to 2 million, but still, that's a pretty respectable amount.
If even.
The people only subscribing for one reason, and I'm not going to say it. But here's the big drama is that there was another YouTube creator, Jack's Film, who has been critical of her, even dedicated a secondary channel, and even on his main channel, kind of critiquing her. They had beef. He kind of stopped, and then, but unfortunately, with some people out there, including myself, sometimes we hold grudges, and she held a grudge against him. So the story is that she Instagram story saying, "Hey, Jack's Film, can we talk in person? I'm like 5 minutes away." But here's the kind of weird thing is that she did not DM him. She made an Instagram story. So it's public that he can also see and gets tagged in, but also her millions of Instagram followers also see. So that is kind of borderline doxing. But then she takes it one step further, is that she didn't get a reply and went to his house and took an Instagram video story of his house. Don't dox Jack's film, because I haven't watched his stuff for a long time, but he's a pretty respectable guy. And here's the big problem, is that is doxing, because you showed his physical location. Those professional geoguessers out there.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's pretty. Geoguessing is really cool.
Yeah,
but people can find out where he is. And you literally exposed his address to potentially 30 plus million subscribers, or 30 million of her audience, or maybe a couple million on Instagram, whatever.
A lot of people. And it can be a very dangerous space, because how she is, who she is, and her kind of type of fans, unfortunately, are kind of just look her up and you probably can get an idea. People can be crazy, and people do crazy things. Yeah. Yeah.
So
yeah, I saw the headlines about her doxing someone, and it's just like, come on, just think for a fucking second. Like, do you really think this is a good move? Like, I'm sure she was like, oh, this is edgy content. Oh, he's gonna love it. Oh, we're gonna create a beef, and it'll create all this drama. It'll be great content. But it's like, no, you don't get to create beef that's one-sided. Don't fucking dox people. Have a fucking brain. You are a professional. You can't make decisions like this.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's just like one of those things that she knew she knew what she was doing.
Yeah.
But she is so out of touch of trying to make content. This is what the dangerous part of being a YouTube creator is that you get so obsessed making content, and then you start blurring lines. And that's why, like, problems with YouTube prankers getting shot.
Yeah.
Like, happens because you did the wrong thing in the wrong time to the wrong person, and you're fucked. And she did pretty much all of that. And in my opinion, I don't know if YouTube's going to do anything about it, because those being like calls to YouTube to take her off. I don't know. It's really tough, because she's been part of YouTube promotions for so long. Like, they've used her likeness to promote YouTube features. So does YouTube content react controversy with XQC and her? It's brewing. So YouTube is definitely have taken notice and thinking about what they're going to do. I just don't know what they're going to do. And it's very interesting. And this is the stuff that I get kind of hung up on, because I am in that space. David and I are in this space, and we always have to be conscious about it. Because, I mean, LTT tried to make a React content channel, didn't work out. I've suggested some pictures of us reacting to old Intel commercials. That didn't work out. And honest to God, I'm glad that both sides, we never went forward with this.
Yeah, I think that the era of just reacting to content being content, I'm glad that there's a lot of criticism. I feel like that's why copyright law should exist. And I'm not a big fan of copyright law. I think that you should be able to remix content. You should be able to use content. You should be able to, like, pretty freely play with things. But that's not what React content is. It's basically just taking it and then adding, like, the smallest amount of commentary. Like, some people are better at it than others. I think, like, someone like Hasanabi will do a better job kind of pausing and giving explanations and breaking things down. But some of those React streamers are just, like you said, literally like, oh no, you can't do that. Oh, what? No.
Yeah.
That's crazy. And it's like, you are adding nothing, or like maybe you're adding something, but you're not transforming this content at all. It's people, to me, it's like, if someone can watch your content and then doesn't need to watch the original, then it's not transformative enough. And all the React content means that you don't have to watch the original.
Yeah. Like, for example, like, even this podcast is technically reaction content, but we will kind of expand on topics about it. Like, you know, we introduce a topic like, oh, simulation, can you do it in real life? Like, we will talk about that, and we'll kind of break things, and also even be more informative, going, hey, you know, based on my limited experiences being a video producer on this side, I get fascinated by this, because they probably had to do all these kind of steps to make that happen.
Well, yeah. And I think, like, you could make the argument that a review is React content because a review is written as a reaction to watching a piece of content. But I don't think that that's necessarily true. No. I think that the content of a review is someone's opinion about something. And so it's an entire piece that gives you an impression that one person had and tells you a story about
Yeah.
the experience of seeing something. It's not, someone sitting there while the movie's playing being like, huh, no.
Yeah. It's not like we literally created a watch party and didn't say anything. Like if we were actually going to do a legit watch party, it'll be you and I with a chat window, us pausing our parts going, this is dumb. Here's why.
Yeah. And I think there is still space in the world for React content. I think like there's a way to do it. And like, I mean, director's commentary is React content, but I think that one thing that I find weird about the YouTube era is that there's a lot of people without really well-informed opinions that kind of get a platform, and they don't really have that much to say. They're just kind of entertaining to watch. And I think that that's hopefully going to be mitigated and less, and hopefully people of substance, kind of rise to the forefront. But
he was like the biggest kind of like, to me, this is the word proper React channel is like Insider. They do like, for example, the ones that kind of like drew me and made me binge about it is like Special Ops Sniper rates 11 sniper scenes in movies.
Yeah.
Because that is literally transformative because you have real life expert looking at movies and breaking it down of like, is this real or not? Or so like, to me, that's real.
And it's like, it'll be 15 scenes in a 10-minute span. So it's like, it's just showing you the specific clip. It's not playing the whole movie and like, that's your content. So I think that's transformative. And like I said, one of my criteria, one of the legal criteria, I didn't make this up, is if it makes you, if it takes away from your need to buy or like consume the original piece of media, then it's probably too much theft. And that kind of React content is the opposite. You're like, oh shit, man, that scene in Back to the Future, those effects were really cool. Oh man, I really want to watch Back to the Future. Instead of like someone, sitting down and watching all 3 Back to the Future movies and providing light commentary on top. So
it's crazy. 88 miles an hour. I wonder why that.
Gigawatts. We know that is that gigawatts.
That's my kind of thing is that I'm actually excited, which I will provide kind of a very late review because I don't know how to critique musical theater. Is that on Thursday I will be watching Back to the Future.
That's pretty fun.
Yeah, which is a musical on the first movie. And it's going to be interesting because my dad's in it. I was like, he needs to go see a musical theater show. And like,
I thought you said your dad is in it. And I'm like, excuse me?
No. He's like,
but he's here. Yeah.
Yeah. He's going to be landing in about 45 minutes. Yep. So we got to be quick.
We'll find it after this.
Yeah. But yeah, so we're going to do that. So I'll do a light commentary about it. It's not like you can't really spoil it because I can't sing the songs. I'll just be like, it's pretty good.
I'm going back to the future. I don't know the music is. Anyways, I think that's going to be it for this episode. If you like this podcast, please leave us a 5-star review on your podcast platform of choice or a thumbs up on the old YouTube. Get subscribed. Please. Thank you so much. If you want to
I think if we say subscribe, our YouTube button will glow. So I would actually be interested. Subscribe
now. Okay. Or you can reach out to us by email at letswingit22@gmail.com or our formerly known as Twitters, Jono Tan 86 or The Chosen David or Let's Wing It Pod. And you can go to our Patreon where you can support us directly. That is hugely appreciated and allows us to we're planning on doing something at some point.
There's a bunch of money in there, which I have been withdrawing it because I had to pay for the Riverside. And
I should get you to pay for my Premiere because I only use it for this.
Okay. Got it.
Yeah, we'll figure that out. But yeah, it supports our stuff. I've been just paying movie tickets anyways. But it will go towards supporting this podcast directly, not just for fun. And we would greatly appreciate it. And it'll help the future of it if you want more of this content. So that's patreon.com/letswingit.
All right.
And then you can see you later. Bye.